Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast. I'm your host, Dave West, CEO here at Scrum.org. Today's podcast is in the Scrum Master Real Talk series. In this special series, we want to hear from Scrum Masters sharing their personal stories, whether it's about overcoming obstacles, creative solutions, or critical lessons they've learned while fostering Agile teams. So today, we're really lucky. We have Omar Ahmed joining us from the UK. Now, for the listeners, I'd like to apologize up front. Omar and myself are both English, and you know when you get two English people together in a room, suddenly you don't understand a word of what they're saying unless you're English. It's sort of like a special club. So I'd like to apologize up front if we drop into English, but welcome to the podcast, Omar.
Thank you very much. And firstly, thank you very much for this opportunity, and looking forward to adding some real value to your podcast. Thank you.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to it as well, and I'm sort of interested to hear your journey because you're actually joining us from the north of England, right? So,
That's
which
right,
is so outside London, outside the sort of like tech hotspots of England. So I'm really excited to hear some of that as well. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me your story. How did you become a Scrum Master, Omar?
It was a very coincidental incident on how I managed to land my first Scrum Master role. So I've got a background in engineering and mechanical engineering. So I graduated in 2013, and in the same year I started working for a defense company in the UK. And when I got there, it was a big sort of learning curve, a big learning curve in terms of its culture. One thing I found is that naturally we were very, very regulated. But one thing that didn't really sit well with me was around the mindset of some of my colleagues and peers. So it was quite insolvent, very waterfall. It was very we've always done it this way mentality. And I always mentally I was always at a loggerheads with that level of attitude. So I went through the motions. I obviously got stuck into my role. So I've got backgrounds in some engineering roles. I've done work abroad in the Middle East. I've worked in supply chains, and the jackpot that I hit when I landed a Scrum Master role was I was on a continuous improvement course. Then we were in about the peak of the pandemic, so the course was being held via Zoom, and I met a great chap called Dave Harrison, who I teamed up with over the course of the 6 weeks that we were together. We started building a very strong rapport where we got to know about each other, about our values, our beliefs, what we stood for, what we wanted out of our career, etc. So one day, I was working from home at the time. I got a call from Dave, and he said, "Are you interested in becoming a Scrum Master?" Now, at the time, I had no idea what a Scrum Master was. And so I started to explore a little bit more around, obviously what the role entails, etc. And he said, so I think you'd be, quite the ideal, person, because of, I've got to know you, your mentality, your aspirations, your ability to, wanting to empower the people at a grassroots level, etc. And so I obviously explored the role and stuff, and I was glad to accept, to explore obviously what the art of the possible was. Obviously within the organization, it was a new role, it was a new, obviously new project that we would be working on, etc. So it was a very coincidental Obviously I met someone on a training course. He saw obviously something within myself, which I'm always and eternally grateful for. And I'm thankful to Dave, for seeing that within me. And so since then I've served as a Scrum Master in 3 teams on a very diverse portfolio. My first Scrum team was around yeah, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to, before you launch into sort of like talking a
Yeah,
little about the Scrum teams, which I'm really, really interested in, I definitely want
yeah,
to
yeah,
pick
yeah.
up on that. Let's go back to sort of your journey to Scrum Master. And there is a bit of a theme that I've heard on a few of these podcasts. So the point that you raised, that so you graduated university, started working in the defense sector, mechanical engineering, right?
Yeah, mechanical. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's like real engineering. I'm a aspiring mechanical engineer when it comes to combustion engines, and all I managed to do is force my car to be towed to a garage to be fixed afterwards. But we'll ignore that for a second. So
Yeah.
mechanical engineer, real engineering, and you sort of realize that the environment that you were working in wasn't perhaps as fulfilling as it could be, right? There was a lot
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
process. You talked
Yeah,
about waterfall, you talked about sort of like process, and you mentioned the art of the possible. It's funny, it's the exact opposite, right? Often it's the art of the
absolutely. Yeah,
impossible. you know
yeah, yeah.
you get 3 engineers together and they can tell you why something could never happen,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah, yeah,
happens.
yeah.
So that didn't sit great with you, but you carried on like anybody. You got to pay your mortgage, and then you attended this process improvement, and really started talking to this mentor, and he opened your eyes to the possibility that actually that uncomfortableness can actually be a huge asset as a Scrum Master working with companies. Does that really sort of sum up how you got into this role?
Yeah, I think so. And one very important point is that, I'm quite, politically, passionate about, politics, whether that's like in local government. I mean, I've served on my local government, board in the council. I've also, taken a strong interest on a national level and international level. And I've always wanted to you bring about some change, some positive, real, change within obviously my
Yeah,
community, and also from a geopolitical, sort of landscape. I think, people have got a huge level of power, within themselves, and often, through systems, through, societal, pressures, work pressures, financial pressures, we almost, pigeonholed into a hole that we're forced on. And I wanted to be that voice of change, the anchor of change, where we can empower people to really discover the power that they have within themselves. That the system has kicked out of them, and stuff, and really grasp that killer instinct that they have within themselves. And I wanted to be that person. So I think the Scrum Master role was the perfect, fit to really quench that thirst that I have. I had it then and I've still got it now. That real quench for change and real authentic
yeah,
change
yeah, yeah.
against the establishment, against the system. And I wanted to be that person. Yeah.
Let's just for our listeners, you do not need to wear a beret and become part of the revolution. However, the point that you raised, I love your passion. I think it's amazing. The point that you raised, I think that is really very spot on, and very something that what drew me to Scrum was, I'm from a very working class family, in just outside Leicester, and I watched the fact that these, my family and my mum and others, incredibly bright, had loads to give, but were never enabled to give in the work that they worked at. They were always just shut up, do this, etc. And it really broke them. And then they did a great job, and but they never really, I don't think, you called it sort of like freed that sort of like that possibility, the art of the possibility. And I think that organizations ultimately have this amazing group of incredible assets that unfortunately, due to risk management, governance, compliance, process, and just the effort of creating an environment where they thrive, don't thrive, do reasonable jobs, but don't. I mean, how many Einsteins, Michelangelos, but anyway, have we got in these companies that could just do amazing things? And part of the beauty of Scrum is, and the Scrum Master role in particular, is that your job is to free them from the shackles. And
Yeah. Uh, yeah, absolutely. And, often, like I mentioned, the command and control culture, which I found within the company and stuff, what I mean? And often one thing I tell my Scrum teams is that the most, powerful voice is the voice that's unheard and not expressed. So it's all about, creating that, psychological safety, within your teams. And the most valuable opinion isn't the one who's got the highest grade or the highest paid, etc. It's often those who are quiet, but they need a little bit of a push, like a little bit of a nudge, just to get their opinion out there, and not, and diversify the landscape of the discussion. And often we can you come up with some really incredibly powerful solution when everyone's involved. So it's all about that constant challenge. Of harnessing an environment, obviously where people feel you feel safe. Was he voicing their opinion? And absolutely make sure there's no retribution or ill judgment, to people's perspectives, and create that overall that safety net, for people to flourish and be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, exactly, Omar. I think that's admirable sort of motivation to become a Scrum Master. Love it. So, all right, so you've worked on multiple different teams. You started telling that story. So you're now working as a Scrum Master. And tell me a little bit what happened next. You worked on one team, then another, and then you sort of worked on a few different situations, right, Omar?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my first team, when I came into it, I was, quite, brand new to the concept of Scrum. I wanted to, I wanted to, at the time, and I still do, I wanted to be the best, Scrum Master on the planet. So, I went down a road of, learning, and I discovered Scrum.org. And there was a battle between, Scrum.org and Scrum Alliance, but I think the Scrum.org, it blew it out the water. As far as my analysis went. And I started to obviously study the Scrum Guide. I went, on the qualifications sort of route. I really wanted to, equip myself with the knowledge. Yeah, because with knowledge comes power, and with knowledge obviously comes influence and persuasion, etc. So I really wanted to obviously use that not it to effectively use that knowledge to benefit the team that I was serving in. And it was a very in a diverse team that I was working in. Most of them never even heard of what a Scrum Master was, and there was me, trying to ensure that they had a faith in my skills, but also in the background I was trying to obviously learn everything myself. And the Scrum Master role within the organization I work for, it was also like a novel role within itself. Just like it was just in a very much like in its infancy and stuff. So it's like I was fighting three battles at once. I was trying to equip myself with knowledge. I was trying to serve the teams that I was obviously serving in, but also I was trying to coach the organization as well. I'm managing my manager, like almost obviously with what the expectations of what a real Scrum Master is. Obviously, as opposed to obviously mixing it in or diluting it with like a project manager or some sort of other similar role, etc. So it's been three constant battles that we were at. But eventually, one thing that I'd actually hardwired into myself is that Scrum Master role is a very challenging role. It's a rewarding role, but it's a role of great responsibility because you're in a position, of responsibility, and it's my accountability to ensure that I serve the team, as best as I can. So on my email, signature, I don't write the word in a Scrum Master as my role, it's I mean, I've got the words a Scrum servant because I'm here to provide a service to the team, right? And and if you bear that in mind of what you're here for, sometimes at the expense of your own career, maybe, or your own aspirations, then I think you're on a very good steading because you're here to serve, and not be served. You're here to serve. And if you remember that, I think you'll be on the right paths to succeeding and adding real value to real teams. And obviously, creating some great products for your customers and stakeholders.
So tell me a little bit about, let's lean in a little bit more about that almost tension between the need to serve the team and your own personal needs as somebody that wants to get promoted, wants a career, wants to earn more money, wants to buy the bigger car,
Sure,
wants to, you
sure.
know, have a holiday in Blackpool or whatever. Anyway, so um, tell me a little bit about that tension.
So the tension, sometimes can be quite, difficult to manage within yourself because there's these inner demons, as you mentioned. You've got your own, vested interest to serving the team, and I think before you start, you have to know, what you're about, what you believe in, so what your values are and what your beliefs are. Of why you're in this game, of why you adopted this role in the first place. And I'm a big believer that it is if you do the right things at the right time, even if someone isn't noticing, somewhere down the line, it'll pay dividends for you. Now, one thing I was absolutely non-negotiable on that I wasn't prepared to do it the wrong way. So I wasn't prepared to walk over anyone. I wasn't prepared to you be that person who isn't like a faithful colleague, isn't a loyal colleague, isn't a loyal, colleague to the organization, isn't a loyal worker. So, I wanted to do it the right way. And I believed, and I still believe, with your right skill set, with the right attitude, obviously with sacrifice of of your own interests and time, obviously short-term pain for long-term gain. And I can sit here now, 3 years on, and I can say, okay, yes, there was some challenges. There was, demons, obviously, that speak up in that inner voice, or that you deserve better, or why are you doing this, etc. Do you know what I mean? Where you could be, taking a shortcut and earning much more money, etc. I sit here now, and I'm very happy in the position that I am. Obviously, knowing very well that in my heart of hearts, I've tried to do the best, obviously, by my colleagues, obviously by the Scrum teams that I've served in, and also the organization that employs me. And I'll sleep very soundly at night, knowing I've tried my best and I've not obviously gone out there to try to, do anything negative towards anyone. So, I sit here, pretty comfortable.
So it's funny, there's an interesting word called karma, right? And that ultimately an organization has, by the sum of its parts, a certain level of karma. And some would argue that a Scrum Master's role is to enable and facilitate an environment of improved karma for the team. But ultimately, I think that the idea that if you do what's right by the team ultimately do what's right for you, and the
Yeah,
organization does, particularly as the end goal is still to deliver amazing products to customers, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
deliver those in
absolutely.
the most effective way. And we do that not by running a process to the nth degree. We do that by enabling teams to work together in the most effective way. And that requires, a certain environment which you described. So all right, now we try to keep these calls a little bit, or these podcasts a little bit shorter, so that people have time to actually listen to them while they're, ironing some shirts or traveling on their commute. So, what advice would you give to a Scrum Master? Maybe they've just attended a process improvement class with Dave Harris was his name, or Harrison or something,
Yeah,
and
Harrison. Yeah,
yeah,
Harrison.
Harrison seems like a great guy that drives change into an organization like him. So maybe they've attended a class with him and he's told them, you should really become a Scrum Master. What advice would you give a new Scrum Master, Omar?
One thing I'll say is always be true to yourself. Obviously, know what your values and your beliefs are about, and never lose sight of the mission. Obviously when things go, obviously tough, and when they turn incredibly tough, and trust me, by experience, they will. You got to have that tough layer of skin as a Scrum Master, but always have the belief that the dial will ultimately, move. Say move slowly sometimes, but it will move. And always trust your instinct. Always, keep your eye on the mission, and always remember you're there to serve and not be served. Span, if you remember, these basic facets, I don't think you'll be far off from doing well by your teams that have entrusted you with such a great responsibility. It's rewarding, yeah, but never forget that you're in a position of responsibility as well, and it's quite a great responsibility. So obviously enjoy the ride, learn, and never be afraid of, of failing as well. Obviously fail fast and pick yourself up, dust yourself off. Do you mean, and get going again? Your tomorrow's always gonna, happen. What the sun's always gonna come up again. It's a new start. It's a new day. Yes, so keep going and keep learning and stuff. You know what I mean? And and never allow anyone to tell you that you can't do something. Yeah, because you can and you will.
So another tip I'd like to share with aspiring or new Scrum Masters is around the importance of networking. Yes, so networking is very important because you can diversify and connect with people and diversify the conversation. With people across a range of portfolios. Individuals who've got a range of experiences which may differ to yours. Yeah, so you can lean on each other during the challenging times, but also celebrate successes, look at common trends, etc., and also pick up some very useful techniques in managing the Scrum sort of philosophy through your teams and coaching them on their path to self-management, and also on their path to maturity in in creating and shipping great products for customers. My own experience is a few people I'd like to mention. Drew Steele, Faye Belshaw, Sunita Gadas, Adam Ridge, and now currently I work for a chap called Paul Holder. All these individuals have got diverse portfolios and diverse experiences, but we've all come together to support each other, and learn from each other, which is a great strength, a pillar of strength in in the tough times. So yeah, so that's another tip that I would like to share with aspiring or new Scrum Masters. So one direct example that I would like to convey to aspiring or new Scrum Masters is around change, resilience, and coaching around organizations. One direct example that I'm involved in is the enterprise I work for, which is a defense/aerospace industry. And as you can imagine, it's highly regulated. And now, there's a real drive and focus, and a razor sharp focus in wanting to transform our sector into true agile fashion. And we've got huge sponsorship coming from the very top in our managing director, Simon Barnes, who's a great agile evangelist and really wanting to transform our mindset, the way we do business, our processes, and and truly increase the agility and the scope of agility within our sector, which is a huge confidence booster for our sector and those truly on the ground, like Scrum Masters, like Agile coaches, like Enterprise Agile coaches who are really wanting to make a difference.
That's awesome advice. The idea that at the end of the day, dealing with these challenges in teams, whether that's conflict, whether that's dependencies, whether that's impediments, whether that's disagreement on what good looks like or what bad looks like. Dealing with those those conflicts every day is the responsibility of a Scrum Master, so it can be exhausting, but don't ever lose faith. And I think that's a really nice set of principles to sort of drive this as a new Scrum Master or an experienced Scrum Master. I think that's awesome. So, Omar, thank you for taking the time today. I really enjoyed it. I love your passion. I love your energy for this. It's refreshing. Some days, as you can appreciate, I talk to a lot of people, and sometimes that passion has been broken. So it's really refreshing to hear that.
was absolutely my pleasure. And thank you very much. I'm very grateful for your time and your time to listen to me and, your friendliness and your candidness on this, podcast. And I'm very happy to be here. It's man, above all, obviously very grateful for your time. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Emma. So the people listening today, thank you for listening to today's Scrum.org community podcast. I was fortunate to be here as part of our Scrum Master Real Talk series with Omar Ahmed from the north of England. You may have noticed that from his accent there. And we were talking really about his journey to being a Scrum Master and his passion for empowering teams and helping them deliver amazing, valuable products to their customers and creating that environment where people thrive. It's certainly that is certainly a level of passion that I think we can all appreciate. And trust yourself. You can do this as a Scrum Master if you're new to the role. He was thrown into the deep end and survived, which is always good to hear, right? Perhaps it doesn't feel that way today while you're listening to this podcast. Anyway, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe, share with friends, and of course, come back and listen to some more. I'm lucky enough to have a variety of guests talking about everything in the area of professional Scrum, product thinking, and of course, Agile. Thank you, and Scrum on.